Well, with us right now is Catherine Bryans with the Friends of the Village. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Always good to see you. And you're going to talk about recapping the most recent meeting that you had, and of course talking about the upcoming meeting on Friday.
This Friday, exactly.
Yes.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the February meeting because Judith Troutman and John Parker came in and gave us just a wonderful insight as to what happened with Clubhouse 2, how things evolved, because a lot of the members in Friends of the Village are former board members, and people continue to ask us questions. What's going on? What did it cost? So they came in and they were exactly what we needed, and that's why I wanted to let people know the kind of information that comes out of these meetings, plus an opportunity to ask their own questions, which is always important. So one of the things that they stated that they had learned quite a few lessons, like leaving the emotion out of making on the process. There was a lot of emotion, a lot of controversy about Clubhouse 2 originally. And they've decided that they will be hiring a contract lawyer prior to, and involve the staff very early in the process. During this period, as you know, there was a change in the governance in the community, and a lot of new staff members came in and they didn't have the history of what was going on.
Exactly.
So it was very difficult. They came in sort of this late point, and it was very hard for them to understand and get the concept and know where we were going. So they wanted to select a project manager and review the backgrounds of all potential subcontractors. These are all lessons they've learned. And getting a much more detailed budget is very important, and paying attention to the architecture and whether that's a value to maintain or replace. And destructive testing became a very big subject as they were doing, and they have to do it earlier and in much more depth. We're talking about remodels at this particular point.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And they stated that they now have the levels of professionalism and expertise in the staff to be able to take on a project like this without running over crazy things and minimizing whatever might be coming up. I think, as you recall, when they did destructive testing on Clubhouse 2, they never went up to the roof. And that became a very big issue later on. Those are all called change orders, and you can just hear the ka-chings going when they do that. And at this point, the project is, I think, 7.1, somewhere around there, million, and there's still not has been a final payment made to the contractor. There's still some things off the checklist, what they call a punch list at the end. And so the final cost may not be known for sure for a while. So then again, we go back to the emotion. Would it have been better to replace it?
Right, exactly.
So the other thing they discussed, which everybody's been talking about because of the decal necessary of getting decals, is the gate security system. And I do know at this point, United has requested to be the next in line. I think Third is also, they found out in the gates 5, 6 how much more control and security they have. It was overwhelming. They found out of the 2,000 members of the Emeritus program, only 400 are village residents. So those are the kind of numbers they're coming up with. So gates 1 through 4 are going to be put into the budget for 2018. So how that's going to play out, not really sure.
All right. And then the pickleball courts, right?
The discussion, that's been, I hate to say this, bouncing around for a while, but
it has been.
Where to stay where they are, to renew that, or to move it. And I guess the decision is made that they're going to move across the street closer to this building near Clubhouse 7. But they have a $600,000 budget at this point, and whether or not that's going to have to be increased, we don't know. And that does not include the relocation and the road improvements that are necessary.
Now the garden centers. And this will be the subject of your upcoming meeting.
Exactly. There's obviously in the community a lot of, strong opinions and emotions about the garden center. And I think John Parker is going to be joining us this week, and he's sort of been vilified at times, and this is not a place to come to vilify him, but we would like people to come because they will be able to ask questions. there were so many years of a lack of oversight and mismanagement that led to the point where the gardeners themselves were sort of running
Right.
the whole system. And it was pretty freewheeling, and members were, residents found themselves able to sneak several plots, and there are people there with 8 plots, and
Yeah,
that's
a
when
lot.
we're talking about 200 square feet is what you're supposed to have.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, it is.
And so there's a lot of banging pots and pans and wondering what's going on. And so we've asked John to come back, although he did touch on the garden centers last month. We felt that it's a worthy information to find out right now. It's an ongoing problem, and I've heard from both sides who's, you know, screaming and yelling, and people saying, but John's not even a gardener, how do we know? I don't think you have to be a gardener to understand that this was not being managed correctly. And the hope is, because there's so many people on the waiting list, that exactly, and whether or not, and then of course the thing comes up, you promised us a 3rd garden center, and I don't think there was a promise, there was an expectation and hope. But at some point that money has been given up and gone back into reserves, and will be used for the improvement. And what has to happen is there has to be some order. It's like living in the village when you're in close proximity to everyone. There's regulation helps us be good neighbors.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's happened in the garden center is little beyond that. And I've had people come and say, I don't understand, I got this letter and it told me what I had to do, but it didn't tell me everything, and I got one for one plot and not for the other. And I'm going, excuse me? Turns out, you know, he and his partner had 4 plots. Well, it's a little self-serving, but I think in a community where we have shared cost, we better sit down and figure out what's our share.
So that will be the topic of the meeting coming up on Friday.
Right.
And that meeting is in Dining Room 1 at the Performing Arts Center at 2 o'clock, right?
Absolutely.
And people can just stop by?
Yes, there's no cost to come. I mean, there's no cost to attend any of our general meetings. If you'd like to become a member, you certainly have the opportunity. It's $15 for a single person or $20 for a couple.
Okay.
But you don't have to come and listen and have the opportunity. You can still ask questions.
Yeah, exactly.
And as long as everybody's respectful on the question. I watched the last GRF meeting and again got into the garden center, and it gets a little bit...
Right. People are passionate about it, their gardens, for sure.
Exactly.
All right, so stop by that meeting for Friends of the Village, and again, that will be this Friday, 2 o'clock in the Performing Arts Center in Dining Room 1.
Absolutely.
Right?
You bet.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Always. We'll be right back. Yeah.